Can a leopard change its spots? A friend asked me that question recently. And do you know what I said? I said, of course a leopard can change its spots. What do you think? This is all about relationships, control, and jealousy, and whether those behaviors can ever be changed or not. Hi guys, Calvin again. So when my friend asked me this question, and she says, do you think a leopard can change its spots? I said, no, a leopard can't change its spots. But we're not talking about leopards here, we're talking about people. And a person can change. Life is just a constant flow of change. And if everything is changing all the time in our lives, then of course a person can change. So in that context, a leopard can change its spots. I want to talk about the surrounding context of that question, which was all around jealousy and control. Have you been finding yourself trapped in checking your partner's phone, looking for the thing you actually don't want to find? Have you found yourself being snooped on by your partner because they fear that you may be doing something that perhaps you're not? It's not really that important so much whether or not the other person is doing anything. What I want to talk about is our own behavior. And I want to talk about specifically what I've learned from my own realizations of coming out of jealousy and control in relationships. So jealousy is actually quite a destructive emotion, or quite a destructive feeling. And what is it that's motivating that behavior? That is the question. What is it that motivates me to want to snoop on my partner and look at their messages, look at their phone, only to try and find something that I don't actually want to see? What is driving such a preposterous behavior? So let's talk about jealousy and control a little bit and what's actually going on there. So I'm looking for something I don't want to find. The thing I don't want to find is going to hurt me. I don't want to be hurt, of course, so why am I looking for it? And this is the paradox, because we have these emotional sores. Let's imagine that we have an injury on our emotional body. We have an injury on our arm, emotionally speaking. And we wrap this up with other behaviors to protect it. Okay, so we put this bandage on it, and I'm a man, I don't feel pain. And it's all bravado and autocratic behavior and brawn. And, you know, this is what we experience in life with different people, but especially in my experience, there was a inability to be vulnerable because I wanted to protect myself. And as we grow and develop, and which is fundamentally, I think, the purpose of life, is to heal these emotional wounds and to make ourselves whole again and to grow ourselves in awareness, then we are able to gradually become more and more and more free. So what's driving this behavior of jealousy then is there is a wound there that we don't want to be hurt. So it's our inability or our lack of desire to experience pain again. And if you imagine then that you've got this injured arm and there's a wardrobe in your house and it's just blocking the door a little bit, and as you're walking, you know, you bang your arm against it. That hurts, right? So what do? You move the wardrobe, or you move the chest of drawers, or you move whatever the object is that's in the way. And as we do that, what we're doing is actually manipulating our environment so that it is safe for us, and it removes the causes of the pain, the triggering of the pain, I should say. But actually, if you consider that the wound will always be hurt if it's there. So all we're doing then in the relationship is controlling the environment to avoid the experience of pain. So this is where the control element comes in. We try to control our relationships because we have an insecurity. The insecurity is the fact that we're wounded, and because we're wounded, we barricade that up with other distracting behaviors, and then we manipulate our environments to disallow ourselves from experiencing that trigger, with that thing that's going to hit us and cause us pain. So we call this experiential avoidance, as I've mentioned in some of my other talks. But specifically in my experience, I found myself in jealous rages in the past in relationships. And that's really rooted in my own insecurity as well. It doesn't actually really matter so much about the other person. Remember that a human being will only act in accordance with their own consciousness. And I remember being absolutely floored when I heard Eckhart Tolle mention that in one of his talks, and it opened something in me that made me, I don't know, it was a realization. It's like stepping up a rung on a ladder and then the previous rung disappearing. It was a complete shift where it doesn't actually really matter about the other person because they will act in accordance with their own consciousness. So therefore, trust in whatever anybody else does will always be there. Actually, I think I'm going to do a completely separate talk on acting in accordance with your own consciousness and how we can always trust others. But I'm talking about my own behavior and the destructive side of the jealousy and control. And what I was essentially doing was saying to me, hey mate, you got a problem that you need to look at here. But a certain level of readiness, a certain level of awareness, a certain level of desire to break free of that prison is required. So then we are constantly looking for the very said thing that we do not want to experience. So we've heard this expression, what you think about, you bring about. Whatever you focus your mind on is what is most likely to happen. Whatever you focus your mind on is most likely to happen. So if we're so worried and anxious because we are afraid of experiencing pain, and then we're constantly looking for that pain, you're constantly checking your partner's phone because you're looking to see who she's with, you're constantly worried about whether your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife is out with this particular person, you're just worried about everything. And inside you're carrying that weight. It's bandaged, of course, so outwardly no one can see your wound. You've covered that wound up with a whole load of other behaviors, whatever those compensatory behaviors might be, but they're there and they're hiding this wound of ours. But we've moved the wardrobe out the way because we don't want to bump into it and experience this pain. So then we manipulate our relationships and our environments to disallow the activating of the pain. So once we realize this, then what it's doing is it's making it okay for us to look at ourselves. It's making it okay for us to say, I'm going to look at myself here because I'm the one who's wounded. I'm going to look at myself here because I'm the one who doesn't want to experience pain. I'm going to look at myself here because I'm the one who's moving the wardrobe and manipulating my environment, manipulating my relationships so that I do not experience pain. So if we find ourselves in a place where we can look at ourselves, if we have the courage to be able to face and deal with these wounds, then we are much more empowered to break out of the cycles of jealousy and control, build relationships that are based on trusting that other people will only act in accordance with their own consciousness, and we can then focus on our own healing. So of course a leopard can change its spots. We know that nature is changing all the time, therefore we're changing all the time. And separately, a person is not their behavior. Okay, a person is the observer of their behavior. The behavior can of course change. So my friends, what I'm saying here is a leopard can change its spots. And please don't feel imprisoned or weighted down by these expressions, which can be quite limiting. Look out for my next talk, when I will talk a little bit more about trusting people to act in accordance with their own consciousness, and I look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.